The story begins with Dickie, a very poor boy who studies at one of the best private schools in the city. His father, T, works as a construction worker on large building sites, and practically all the money he earns goes toward paying for his son's school. At school, Dickie's teacher, Miss UN, worries a lot about him. It hurts her to see him arrive dirty to class every day, so she tries to talk to his father, but Dickie tells her that his dad is always busy working and hardly has any time for him. On top of that, Dickie's mother died when he was very young, so he spends most of the day alone. During a class activity, Mr. Cow asks the students what they want to be when they grow up, and Dickie replies that he wants to be poor. Everyone laughs, but he explains that his father always tells him that if he grows up to be an honest and hardworking person, then even if he's poor, people will respect him. Right after he speaks, the teacher drops his pen on the floor. Dickie gets up, picks it up, and hands it to him. But the man reacts in the worst possible way. He orders Dickie to put the pen back on the floor so he can pick it up himself with a cloth, just because Dickie touched it. Later, during lunch, one of his rich classmates, Johnny, shows off his new toy, a robot dog called CJ1, while everyone gathers around it. Dickie notices Maggie, a girl in their class who is unusually large compared to the others. Some boys start teasing her and making cruel comments. Dickie steps in and tells them to leave her alone, but the bullies just walk away laughing. When gym class starts, Dickie isn't allowed to participate because his sneakers are too old and not suitable for the activity. A few minutes later, Maggie walks up to him and says she pretended to forget her own sneakers so she could stay with him. She asks if all his shoes are that worn out, and he tells her yes, because his dad finds them in the trash. Even though Dickie admires his father and is never ashamed of him, he dreams of having new sneakers so he can play sports, which is what he loves most. Meanwhile, at the construction site, T can barely keep up with the pace of the work. His boss decides to fire him, but T begs him to let him stay because he needs to buy a fan for his son, who can't sleep because of the heat. The boss asks why he tries so hard to keep Dickie in a private school, and T replies that he wants his son to have more opportunities in life and not end up like him. Hearing that, the boss changes his mind and lets him stay on. That night, T arrives home riding his old bicycle, and he's carrying a fan. They both live in an abandoned, half-demolished building, so anything new is a luxury. Dickie gets excited when he sees it, but when his father turns it on, the fan doesn't work. Dickie suspects that his dad found it in the trash, but T insists he paid a lot for it and that, according to him, it worked when he bought it. In the end, Dickie ends up using a handheld fan to endure the heat. During dinner, T cuts off the bad parts of an apple so he can give the good pieces to his son. Taking advantage of the moment, Dickie asks if he could buy him new sneakers. T promises he will. Later, before going to sleep, they spend some time playing killing the cockroaches that appear everywhere in the house. The next morning, they go out together and stop in front of an electronics store window to watch the news on a TV. They're talking about an alleged UFO sighting, but the image looks more like the head of the guy who claimed he saw it than an actual spaceship. While T watches the screen, Dickie walks into the toy store next door and discovers a toy identical to Johnny's. The famous EJ1, excited, he promises his dad that if he buys it for him, he'll never ask for anything again. But T doesn't have any money and asks him to leave it where it is. Dickie keeps insisting over and over, until his father, overwhelmed, ends up slapping him. After putting the toy back, Dickie starts crying and runs out of the store. His father goes after him, but when he finally catches up, he runs into Miss UN, Dickie's teacher. She tells him she wants to visit them at home to talk about Dickie because she believes parents should also be involved in their children's education. But T, uncomfortable and embarrassed, quickly walks away and tells her he's too busy with work. That night, T goes to the junkyard looking for something useful, and there he finds a pair of sneakers he plans to bring back for Dickie. He also finds a TV and tries to see if it works. But right at that moment, a flying saucer appears among the piles of scrap, rises into the air, and zooms away, leaving behind a small, strange object that looks like a toy. When he gets home, T tells Dickie he found something much better than CJ1. The boy runs over, excited to see it, but the only thing he finds is a kind of gelatinous ball. Even so, he decides to take it to school. During recess, Johnny shows up to bother him and asks what that ball is. Not wanting to look bad, Dickie says it's called CJ7 and that it's much better than the CJ1. Johnny mocks him and says Dickie's dad probably pulled it out of the trash, which makes Dickie furious, and he warns Johnny that he'll hit him if he talks about his father again. Johnny laughs and blows a whistle. Within seconds, Dragon, a huge boy about 5 times bigger than Dickie, shows up. He grabs Dickie by the arm and tosses him aside like nothing. That night, T scolds his son for fighting at school and for tearing his uniform. Dickie explains that everyone was making fun of him because of that ridiculous toy. While he's talking, he accidentally activates the gelatinous ball, and it starts moving by itself. Spikes appear on its surface, and suddenly a small black hole begins to form. Scared, Dickie drops it and screams that it's haunted. From that moment on, he starts seeing strange things all around the house. T doesn't believe him and keeps fixing the uniform. But the closet door next to the bed opens by itself, and when Dickie looks inside, he sees a strange creature moving. He screams in terror, and his father, thinking he's just exaggerating, puts him inside the closet to calm him down. Terrified, Dickie begins to pray for help. And right then, the green ball starts to glow, turns into a kind of flashlight, and projects an illusion that transports him to another dimension. In this vision, Dickie sees a creature with a cabbage-like head, using its antenna to repair a broken object. As it works, the energy stone powering is destroyed, and the creature turns into a plush-like doll. But if the stone is replaced, the being can come back to life. When the illusion ends, Dickie discovers that the gelatinous ball has transformed into a real alien. Just then, T opens the closet door, and the boy tries to hide the creature. When T leaves for work, Dickie finally gets to examine the little being. After watching it for a while, he concludes that it must be a space dog, so he decides to name it CJ7. From that moment on, the two spend the whole night playing. While they're dancing, the creature finds a rotten apple and, using its powers, restores it to look brand new. When Dickie tastes it and realizes it's perfect, he becomes convinced he has found a magical dog. The next day, Dickie arrives at school with CJ7 on his shoulders and proposes a test. If this creature really is a super alien dog, it should be able to defeat the fiercest dog in the neighborhood. CJ7 runs toward it and, surprisingly, with a few taps manages to defeat it. Delighted, Dickie continues on his way to school with CJ7 on his shoulders, proud as ever. Later, the two of them hide in the school bathroom. Dickie asks CJ7 for help getting a 100 on the test that's about to start. The creature opens its toolbox and begins building a pair of special glasses. When the test begins, two tiny robots come out from the sides of the glasses and analyze his classmates' answers. But the robots catch Johnny's attention, and he starts chasing them around the classroom. In the middle of the chaos, Johnny accidentally hits the teacher and uses the confusion to keep chasing the robots, claiming he was only trying to kill a fly. Later, the test results come out, and to everyone's surprise, Dickie gets a perfect score. The boy celebrates excitedly, but his happiness doesn't last long. The teacher asks to see the glasses he used. Nervous, Dickie throws them to him from a distance, but just as Mr. Cow walks over, the glasses explode. When he meets up with CJ7 again, Dickie tells him that the next class is gym and that he needs some super sneakers. A few seconds later, CJ7 already has a special pair ready for him. In class, the teacher brags about his personal jumping record and says no student has ever beaten it. But Dickie, with his new sneakers, clears the obstacle effortlessly. Surprised, the teacher lowers the bar and asks him to repeat it, because there's no way a kid could jump like that. Dickie accepts the challenge, and this time he jumps even higher. Then he goes to the treadmill, and the sneakers release a pair of mechanical legs that attach to his own. With them, he runs so fast that the machine can't keep up and ends up completely destroyed. In swimming, he shines again. When he dives into the water, propellers pop out of his sneakers and launch him at high speed underwater. In soccer, his kick is so strong that he breaks the goal. At that point, the teacher realizes something strange is going on with those shoes and challenges Dickie to a fight. Shockingly, Dickie wins. Right then, Miss Ewan shows up, serious, and tells him he's in big trouble. Meanwhile, Mr. Cow approaches the field with several police officers, but Dickie manages to escape because his sneakers now let him fly. In the air, he sees a cloud shaped like CJ7, and at that moment he wakes up. He had the piece of apple in his mouth. It had all been a dream. His father returns from work and tells him to get up so they can go to school. As he packs his backpack, Dickie sees the little creature hiding inside. Then he understands, even though everything else was a dream, CJ7 was real, and maybe he could help him get a 100 on the test. On the way to school, he passes by the alley where the fierce dog lives. He tells CJ7 to defeat it to prove his powers. But although CJ7 doesn't run away, he ends up getting rammed by the dog and sent flying. Dickie has to run with the little alien to keep them from getting bitten. Discouraged, he starts to lose faith in his space dog, but still takes him to school. In the bathroom, he argues with him, frustrated, demanding that he use magic to help him with the test. But the only thing CJ7 manages to produce is a super poop. With no other options, Dickie takes the thing to class and places it in front of him during the exam, hoping something will happen. But absolutely nothing happens. Mr. Cow announces that time is up, and Dickie hasn't even started writing. Johnny sees him and asks why he has poop there. Then he makes it fall right onto Dickie's face, causing everyone to burst out laughing. After the exam, filled with anger and frustration, Dickie snaps. He drags CJ7 to the bathroom, shoves his head into the toilet, and yells that the dog tricked him. He demands that he pull out his magical weapons, but the only thing he gets is another poop explosion. In gym class, the teacher has to ask the gardeners to hose him down because he is completely filthy and smells awful. Humiliated and furious, Dickie goes after CJ7 again. He pretends he's sorry and asks him to come out of hiding so they can talk. The little creature, innocent as ever, believes him and approaches. And at that moment, Dickie grabs him, stuffs him inside a bag, and throws him in the trash. Then he walks away, leaving him behind. But as he walks, guilt hits him. He realizes CJ7 wasn't to blame for anything, that he was the one who created impossible expectations. Understanding the terrible mistake he's made, Dickie turns around and runs back to get CJ7, but just then, the garbage truck has already passed and picked everything up from the dumpster. Desperate, the boy runs after the truck, yelling for it to stop, but the driver ignores him completely. Later, when he gets home, Dickie tells his father that he lost the toy he had given him. The boy cries, not knowing what to do. Then T tells him that while he was waiting for him, a creature showed up, and it seemed like it was looking for Dickie. When the boy goes inside, CJ7 jumps with joy at the sight of him, as if it had already forgotten everything that happened that day. Curious, T asks what that thing is, but Dickie insists it's just a toy. The man starts bending, twisting, and even smashing the little creature with a metal plate to test it. But CJ7 remains completely unharmed. T seems determined to destroy it, but Dickie stops him, begging him not to hurt his toy. That night, Dickie can hardly sleep because of the heat. So CJ7 uses its magic antenna to repair the old fan. After doing so, it runs out of energy and falls asleep. The next morning, T wonders how it's possible that the fan is working again. Dickie shows him his test, and T is shocked. The boy got a 100 proud. Dickie goes to school with CJ7 on his shoulders, but he's spotted by the delinquents in his class. When they notice him, CJ7 jumps into the backpack. Johnny asks what he's hiding, but Dickie ignores him. Suddenly, one of the bullies snatches the backpack and they capture CJ7. The little alien manages to escape for a few seconds, but Johnny catches it again and tries to pry it open with tools, though none of them can pierce it. Dickie breaks free, jumps onto Johnny, and creates an opportunity for CJ7 to escape. Just as he's about to hit the boy, Dragon appears. He grabs Dickie by the arm and tries to beat him up, but Maggie arrives just in time and demands that he let him go. Dragon tries to hit her, but Maggie is much stronger. She throws him back with a single shove. Furious, he throws a water barrel at her, and she smashes it with her bare hands. Dragon doesn't give up and charges at her, but Maggie grabs him by the waist and squeezes him so hard he passes out. She then picks Dickie up and asks if he's okay, and he thanks her for helping him. At that moment, Mr. Cow appears and the kids return to the yard. CJ7 comes over and hugs Dickie, and he shows his classmates a few tricks the little alien can do. He tells it to sit to make funny faces, but at the end of the game, CJ7 starts wobbling and falling apart, as if it's losing strength. Later at work, T proudly tells his coworkers that his son got a 100 on the test, but his boss asks to see it. When he examines it, he notices something strange. He says Dickie actually got a 0 and that the grade was changed. When T gets home the next day, he confronts his son about forging the score. Dickie admits he did it. Upset, T pulls CJ7 out of the backpack and tells him he'll only give it back when he scores higher than a 60 on a test. That same day, there's another exam, and this time Dickie is determined to do well without cheating. Meanwhile, his father is working on the construction of a tall building. During his shift, an accident occurs. A huge metal cylinder falls from above and gets caught on a rope tied around his foot, dragging him toward the edge. His co-workers try to save him, but they can't reach him in time. T falls from the building, and before hitting the ground, he manages to grab onto a tarpaulin, but the fabric can't support his weight and it tears. T suffers a fatal fall. At school, Dickie is happy with the grade he got on his exam, but his joy doesn't last long. Miss Yuen arrives to get him and takes him straight to the hospital, where his father had been admitted. There, the boy receives the worst news possible. His father didn't survive his injuries. Heartbroken, the teacher walks Dickie home and calmly explains that his father has passed away, but the boy refuses to believe it. He asks the woman to leave, telling her he just needs to sleep. That when he wakes up, his father will be back. In tears, the teacher leaves, because at that moment there's nothing more she can do. That night, in the hospital, CJ7 manages to escape from the bag T had put it in. When the creature sees the man's lifeless body, it becomes very sad, and without thinking, it tries to heal him. With its first attempt, some of T's wounds begin to close, but it's not enough to wake him. CJ7 only used its powers for a few seconds, yet it's already completely exhausted. Even so, it doesn't give up. It tries again and again, pushing against its own limits, until it finally succeeds. The next morning, Dickie wakes up to find his father sleeping beside him. Not understanding what happened, the boy hugs him tightly, begging him never to leave again. T, still confused, hugs him back, but the happiness doesn't last long. Dickie finds CJ7 and immediately notices something is very wrong. The little creature can barely walk and lets out a strange sound. Suddenly, a small sphere falls from its antenna, and in that instant, the alien turns into a simple rag doll. T thinks its battery must have run out or something, so father and son try everything they can to recharge it or give it energy, but nothing works. In the end, Dickie decides to carry his friend with him everywhere, hoping that one day it might wake up again. Summer vacation arrives, and during a school picnic, Dickie sees a flying saucer approaching from the sky. At that moment, CJ7's antenna begins to blink. Suddenly, hundreds of creatures just like him appear and run straight toward Dickie. Don't forget to like and subscribe and let me know what you think about this movie.